Today's episode features this limited edition Scramble Dojo Outfitters collab. Go to dojooutfitters.com and use code DOJOTube to save 10% on your next order.
Give me a little countdown.
Dojo Outfitter family, what's going on? Welcome back to the show. Today we got Bryan Marugg. What's up, brother?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
Dude, thank you so much for coming out. I gotta give a quick shout out to Professor Zach Minter.
Yeah.
Zach kind of honestly put the idea into my head and kind of hooked this up. So thank you, Zach. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Bryan, thank you so much, bro. Thanks
for having me.
Huge honor for me. I've been a fan for a couple years now, and
awesome.
Super excited to get to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, dude, start from the beginning, man. Where did you even get started with jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so I got started back in 2006. I was 13. Really, I was getting in a lot of trouble in school. I was nothing too bad, but I was just kind of in that direction where I could have gone and hung out with a lot of kids that ultimately weren't going to lead me down the proper path. And sort of like a lot of kids that are just fairly lost. They don't know what they want to go do. So in order to not knowing what they want to do, they just get in a lot of trouble.
Right.
So I was always admired my uncle and my cousin, and both of them just told my mom, "Hey, I'm doing jiu-jitsu over at it was SBG at the time, but then later on turned into Impact with Dewey Nielsen, Matt Leach, and Andrew Wong." And they took me down, and the first class, I remember I wore like sweatpants and a t-shirt, and my instructor Dewey Nielsen, he was a purple belt at the time, and he laid on his back and he goes, "Try to pass my guard." And I was so confused but kind of intrigued at the same time. So I remember just not knowing exactly what I was trying to do, whatever I could to try to pass around his legs, and he just toyed with me. And I was like, right then, just how easily he was able to toy with me and just laying on his back, I was like, this is something I gotta learn this. And then ultimately, not only what was so pure about this art is jiu-jitsu, to me at the time too, it was like as if I was joining or I had a superpower, right? So I remember just learning a few techniques and then going back and rolling with some friends at school, and they were like, they were shocked. They didn't know what I was, they were like, I did a guillotine on one kid, and I was like, "Don't tell anybody this, but I'm doing jiu-jitsu."
Yeah, hey, don't worry about
Don't tell
that.
anybody. Because it literally felt like I had a superpower. No one else at school did it, and it was something that was unique to me, and I got to be around a lot of just good, positive people, and it was really great for me.
So how did your uncle and what was the other person? I'm sorry.
My cousin.
Yeah, and how did they just were like, "Straight blast gym, here we come"?
Well, Dewey was also a trainer, so my uncle, I think, trained with Dewey just for like strength conditioning.
Okay.
My cousin was a long-term friend with with Dewey, so they just started doing jiu-jitsu before he went to the army, or maybe it was after the army, somewhere in there. But either way, it was positive for him, and he was like, this is going to give him some direction, so he got me into it. And I was hooked literally that night. I went home and I told my mom, and I said, I got to do this. And I remember at the time, I think our tuition was like maybe $60 a month, because we were in the back room of Gold's gym, and it was like this little tiny room that we'd do our class, and at the end of that class we would clear the mats away because for a women's cycling class to come in. So it was only $60. And I think pretty much so that way my mom made sure that it was like something I really wanted to do, and it wasn't just this next little phase that I was just gonna kind of phase out of. She was like, "Well, you got to pay half your tuition."
Ooh.
So when I was 13, I was running up and down streets with mowing people's lawns, house sitting, dog sitting.
Yep, I was a lawnmower.
Yeah,
dude. I even had some business cards and everything.
Yeah.
I was like, "We'll mow your lawn real quick,
Word
brother."
of mouth goes around too. I mean, everyone they're like, "Oh, you're gonna mow my lawn? All right, come on over here." And then it was just sooner or later I'm mowing everyone's lawn up and down the street and doing work for family members, and I would pay my mom $30 a month every single month to help pay for my tuition.
Dude, that's dope that your mom did that.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good learning lesson, So, and ultimately it taught me to you got to earn what you want to do too, So if I really wanted to do it, I had to go out and earn my own money in order to pay for that. And it was kind of I think it was really good for me.
So talk to me about like your early, so you got all your belts from Impact. Did
Yeah.
you get kids belts or were you just like a white belt right away?
No, so there was no kids program. I think there was one other kid, only one other kid that trained when I first started.
Was this gi or no gi?
All gi.
All gi.
I believe every now and then I think we would dabble in a little bit of no gi, but for the most part it was just gi. And ultimately I went through, I obviously started as a white belt, and then I got my yellow belt, orange belt, and then green belt. So it's not like the traditional IBJJF kids belts nowadays. And I don't know if it just wasn't like that then.
Straight Blast has been doing that forever.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I talked to Amanda about the belt systems and how they did it, and I always thought it was like, I don't know, it's different, right? And so anytime something's different, people always think that it's like weird.
Yeah, I forgot what their belt system. There was some confusion because there was also some adult belts. Like I remember there being like a purple belt in the kids belt system a long time ago. And I could be wrong. This was a long time ago, but I remember there being so many different belts, and I don't know when the IBJJF really nailed down like their traditional belt system that they have for kids nowadays. But for me, when I was started at 13, it was white, yellow, orange, and then green. And then when I was 16, because I was competing in adult divisions when I think I was 14 when I first did my first adult division. And then
So how did that go? Were you fighting like other adults?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I think
you were fighting adult lightweights.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what weight it was back then, but I think it was a one sub league. So it was before sub league did gi, right? And I competed in the kids division. The first tournament I ever did, I think I got 2 draws and I got second. The next time I went and I submitted everybody. And then the next time I went and I think it was like the juniors division at that point. And I think I submitted everybody. And then they kind of came up to me as a joke and they're like, "Hey, you're going to do the adult division too." And I was like, "All right." Like I didn't know, I just was doing what my coaches told me to do. So I just signed up for the adult division, and I don't remember placing. There was like 15 people. It was adult beginner. But I remember getting a handful of submissions and a lot of good matches. And then after that, it was kind of turned it up. It really kind of let me know, like, okay.
Man, another blessing right there. Like for your coaches to kind of like put you into the fire. But it wasn't even really fire because you were out there subbing people too.
It was just, I don't know how to explain it. It was just, it felt right. Like I love competition. And ultimately, I always want to listen to my coaches. If they tell me to go out there and compete with anybody, I'm going to go do it. To this day, I still consult with people before my coach, Armand, even if I want to go compete. I'm like, "Hey, man, that's what I'm thinking about doing," just to get his thoughts on things, because I think it's ultimately
What kind of
smart.
questions are you asking him? Because I do the same thing. I consult this guy right here, but we don't know anything.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll like for when Fight to Win came up, I just explained, "Hey, this is what I'm going to, they asked me to do this. There's risk to reward." I remember when I did the Fight to Win match, ultimately I was like, I had a bunch of stuff going on. We were buying a house. I was going to be flying off like the next day to go help teach a seminar in Florida. So I had all this other stuff going on. I was really, and then I was like, I'm just going to do it. I need to go compete. I hadn't got a chance to compete for a while. And it was Fight to Win's first time being up here, and I couldn't pass it up. But so just asked him. I'm like, "Hey, man, this is what I'm doing." And he's just was like, "Hey, go do it." And because there's sometimes where it's like, "Hey, this probably isn't worth going and doing." You're like, whether you're going to go compete and you're not going to, maybe it's just not going to be worth it, or it's not a good match. Maybe we'll stay away from that. But ultimately, it's just kind of having someone to bounce ideas off of,
Yeah. So I want to get back to talking about the belts too, because for anybody who doesn't know, you formerly were the youngest person to ever get a black belt in the state of Oregon.
Yeah.
Dude, what a huge honor.
Yeah.
How did that feel when that happened?
Man, I mean, one, it was a big honor. I mean, just to get a black belt in jiu-jitsu is a big deal. But it was one of those things that I wanted my black belt, but it was just kind of like the next thing. To me, it was like, how do I perform in competition? So when I got my, from going through blue belt is when I started competing really, really heavily in international tournaments. And then I didn't want to get my purple belt until I won a certain amount of tournaments at blue belt, because it's not going to get any easier. So I wanted to get my, I wanted to be winning purple belts purple belt tournaments as soon as I got my purple belt. And then when I got my brown belt, I wanted to win brown belt tournaments as soon as I got there. So for me, I remember being a brown belt, and I had some tournaments. I was like, I have to win these tournaments before I get my black belt. Otherwise, I'm not going to feel as accomplished being a black belt. And luckily, the last brown belt tournament I won. And then I think I came back and I got my black belt. But it was just that thing of, okay, now I'm going to compete against black belts. So to me, I just knew that I loved jiu-jitsu so much that it was inevitable that it was going to happen. And the goal wasn't to necessarily get the belt. It was just to, like, how far can we take this? How good can we get? And it's still that goal, right? Like, if I compete, like, it's still not about the belt. It's just about, like, how good can I get? I still work on just basic techniques, because my philosophy is, like, if I can't do a basic technique that I learned back when I was 13, if I can't do it to everybody, I got work to do on it. So I'll still hammer away and drill these basic techniques before I move on and, add more to my game, you know? So,
well, I'm glad you said that, because I read a quote where you talked about, like, you're a guy who goes for fundamental, high percentage, low risk moves. And then you'll throw in, like, a sprinkle of flash.
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger competing, it was kind of just chaos, like, I would go out and I'd roll, and it was just kind of chaos. Like, I didn't really have any direction. Ultimately, I would just try to create as much chaos on the mat, and hopefully a submission popped up, and I would gravitate and try to grab the submission. And that worked well until you start competing at a high level and you start losing by, an advantage point, 2 advantage points, 2 points, because someone just plays the game better. So, I think it was when I was a blue belt. I lost the quarterfinals of Worlds. I was a blue belt, and I lost by 2 points. I submitted everybody else within 2 minutes to get to the quarterfinals. And then I lost because someone just played the game better than me. And I think I lost by an advantage point, or maybe it was a ref's decision. And I was so disappointed. But once I got my purple belt, I took over our program in Newberg. So I was the head coach in Newberg as a purple belt. And I needed just more direction. So I went to Impact Beaverton. I talked to Michael Chapman. I remember having a conversation with him at the park about, where I should be going with my jiu-jitsu, and I needed some direction. So he told me, you need to link up with Armand. Armand de Bruges from Beaverton. He's like the dark horse. He's a really good competitor, but even a better coach. And we clicked instantly. I mean, he's still to this day one of my best friends. And I remember him. His style was so about, like, he's very methodical. So he took my chaotic jiu-jitsu and added the ability to, like, lock certain positions down when I needed to, be a little bit more calculated, and make sure that I wasn't taking just ridiculous risks in order to get a submission. And since that point, I was winning. I won way more tournaments because I got my technique dialed into a point where it wasn't just this complete chaos. He really helped me out a lot with that. And it was, literally, it would just be like, I remember at one term as a blue belt, I would pass the guard, I'd get mount, and then I would ditch mount, and I'd go back to cross sides. And it's like I was just scrambling to look for the submission. And Armand is much more like, you float, and then when you see the opportunity, you stick, you get your points. Now you move on. And then so that really helped dial me in to the point where I realized what it actually meant to be a competitor at a high level. And from there is when my competition seemed to really, it took off a lot more for me, having someone that just gave me that proper direction, I think, was really good.
Yeah. I always like to talk to people about competition mindset, because I'm the worst. I always tell people I'm like the worst. It's getting better because I've started doing routines and like, I've gotten to a point where, like, I try and do the same stuff over and over. I had a long time and he's been to all my matches, every single one of them. Dude, I was at a couple points where, like, I couldn't even warm up, bro.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even dude, I barely could make it out there just to fight the guy. Like that's how bad it was.
Nervous, right?
I'm so nervous. Yeah.
And then you start to learn that you want to, like, if you're not nervous, that's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
It's just like learning how to control it. So, I mean, I'm not going to say I have the perfect competition mindset by any means. I mean, that was another thing that Armand helped me out a lot with. I used to just not warm up at all. Like, for some reason, I just was like, that was like my ritual. Like, no warm up, just go on the mat. And it's like your first match is kind of your warm up. And you either have a really good one or you have a really bad one. And he was the one that kind of got me into, like, you know, let's warm up a certain way, and kind of get not just your body prepared to go out and, like, from a warm up perspective to go compete, but get your mind sharp to go out and compete. And but yeah, no, I mean, the competition mindset of being nervous and, like, using that as fuel into your match and making sure that you can just not let it overwhelm you, but, like, use it to kind of hone in and sharpen up what you need to do when you go out and compete is really important. Then it ultimately kind of becomes something that you start to crave. Like, it's that thing that scares me to death with competition. No matter what I sign up for, I'm always nervous, but at the same point, that's why we compete. Like,
dude, I'm nervous when
that,
yeah,
right?
I'm nervous when I hit the click payment button,
right?
Like 2 months away.
Yep. No, and that's usually as soon as you hit click payment, butterflies in the stomach.
You're like, oh, here we go.
Because there's no turning back. Then you start going, my ankle hurts a little bit. My knee hurts a little
my
bit.
Neck.
Like, I could probably get out of this. Maybe can I still get a refund? Oh, yeah, nope. You got to go do it.
I like to sign up on the last day.
That's your move, huh?
That's the move. How can you back out if you sign up on the last day? Right? No BS. Like, I know the whole time I'm signing up, but I just wait. Sign up the last day. Yeah. Oh yeah, chicken bone coming now.
Yeah. There you go. That's funny.
Dude, you're very humble. I can tell you're a very humble guy. Have you put any thought into the realization that you can get your coral belt? Something that, like, most people aren't going to get?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how old that. You just have to do the math of how old that.
So you're 42.
If my body can do it, I'm going to do it.
You're 42 or 43 years away, depending on the math.
I got that. I got that. I just got to make sure I can keep the meat wagon going until I get to that point. But just keep everything fairly healthy, and then yeah. But again,
hold on. How long have you been referring to your body as the meat wagon?
I probably stole that from someone else a long time ago. But
shout out to whoever you stole that from, man.
Dewey or yeah,
get the meat wagon going.
That's true. I mean, because I don't plan on stopping. So it's like, it was the same thing about getting a black belt. People are so worried about getting a black belt. Just keep training. Just keep training, and you're going to get your black belt, right? And so, I mean, like,
what about
cool.
older people?
Same thing, right? I mean, the biggest thing is the ego, is checking the ego and making sure that you can train for longevity, right?
Yeah.
And the motto is, leave the ego at the door. Like, okay, we do need to have ego. Like, ego is actually important in jiu-jitsu, right? Otherwise, like, why would you compete a certain way, right? It helps fuel the fire for the way that you're going to present yourself on the mats at times. At the same point, the amount of times that I've been injured doing jiu-jitsu, almost every single time that I've been injured has been my fault. And that's when ego is obviously really bad for you, right? Of, like, knowing that you're probably still going to lose, but you don't want to tap, and now you're out for 3 months, and now you can't go back and train. That's what I see, because I've taught for a long time, and I've had a lot of people that start in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and some even into their 70s. And they always come in and they say, I just want to train. I don't want to get hurt. And you see them slap hands, and they're going just as hard as everyone else.
Dude,
They're going. Yes. And I'm like, well, you just told me that you're just here for fun. Like, you're just here to exercise, and now you're trying to murder this other person on the mat.
Dude, hold on. I have to tell you something.
Yeah.
There's a certain flow roller in this room. Like, I don't want to make it obvious, right? A certain flow roller who doesn't flow roll. His flow rolls are like a 9.
Yeah.
I, like, look over, like, dude, my flow rolls, I'm chilling.
Yeah.
Right? I look over at this guy. He is dripping in sweat. I'm like, what were y'all two doing over there?
Trying to murder you off the bat, huh?
Murder off the bat.
Murder.
Bro, I want to keep talking about belts right now, because we're on the subject right now. At Portland Judo, we actually don't stripe any of our colored belts.
Okay.
Only stripe the white belts. That's
Yeah.
something that we took from our affiliate One World Jiu Jitsu. They don't even stripe their white belts
Yeah.
down there. What
Yeah.
do you think about the whole like belt stripes, the whole like system, and like also for any of your students that are listening, what does coach need to see from them if they're close to another belt?
That's a really good point. I mean, I can see both things. Like I enjoy. I've always enjoyed getting stripes and giving stripes because, especially from, and I don't know, this could be completely from a business perspective too. So if someone's going to look at this from a business perspective, a lot of times belts and stripes are done from a business perspective, which is good for your business, bad ultimately for the art, because you do start to see watered down jiu-jitsu eventually, and which is really frustrating because again, my mindset is you should be training to train jiu-jitsu and get better at jiu-jitsu, and ultimately you just keep training and you have that open mindset, you're going to get your next belt, you're going to get your, so when people are just they're craving what I need to, they're kind of missing the point. So ultimately, I don't know. I can see both ways, because I also, if you see someone kind of in a lull and you give them a stripe, like a lot of times it's not that they're gonna get better because you give them that boost of confidence. Mm-hmm. So they're gonna usually rise to the occasion. Hopefully, right? That's the goal as a coach, is that you give them that, maybe a stripe. You see them in that lull, and you give them that belt, they rise up, and all of a sudden, because all it is kind of the mindset that you go in with training. But yeah, I do think that it's getting to the point where it's like, I want to keep this guy in my business, so I'm going to give this person a belt in order to keep them coming in and paying me, so I can, and I get that. Mm-hmm. But I also, it kind of loses, like I'm a very slow striper and belter. And like, to me, it's, if you take 6 months off, well, you got 6 more months. If you take a month off, well, you got another month. You know what I mean? Like you have to put, it's all about mat time. So if you're going to come in and you want to, if someone's coming in, they're putting in more mat time, they're going to get their belts and stripes a little bit faster, because they're going to learn more. It's inevitable that if you put more mat time in, you're going to get better. And if you get better, you're going to get your stripes and your belts faster. And then you have to look at, is this person coming in because they legitimately are here to maybe, just they're here for exercise? That person, I'm going to look at giving them belts and stripes a little bit differently than someone that's going to go compete at Pan Americans, right? Or the Worlds. Like you gotta see how they're doing in competition. If that's really their goal, your ability to give them stripes and belts should change. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think that's kind of cool. Like that he doesn't give out stripes.
Yeah, I haven't had a stripe in 4 years.
Yeah.
But Professor Mike Prudencio, the head of One World Jiu Jitsu down in San Jose, that's our affiliate school. He said the belts are a fraud. Like the belts are a gimmick. And he said that when I was a white belt. I heard that when I was a white belt. I was like a 3-stripe white belt when I heard him say that. And bro, that changed everything for me. Yeah. Like even like my goal, like if you would have asked me like whatever, like my goal has always been like black belt. I want to get my black belt. I want to get my black belt. But like it's like, dude, the more I talk about it, like, and even when you talk to people who get their black belts, it's like, dude, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It's
just the next thing.
It's just the next thing.
And how many people get their blue belt and then they just stop?
Bro, right? I know a lot.
I mean, you kept going, which is awesome, but there's so many people that they just get their blue and then they're like, I got it. Because it's so damn hard to get your blue belt. You have to lose so much, and it's humiliating. And I think that was one thing that helped me when I was younger. I started when I was a kid, and I only had adults to roll with. I was like, I better lose a lot, because that would be weird if I just randomly started winning against adults. Like, what's going on here?
Dude, but that's funny that you say both of us needed to be humbled. It was weird. Like, it was so weird.
I think everybody does, honestly.
I just thought I was just the coolest.
Yeah.
And then after getting like, dude, I still get my ass whipped. Yeah. I'm 5 years in, dude. 2 Wednesdays ago, I drove home with my gi on and my belt tied. Yeah. Like, that's how bad of a night I had. And, like, I've been in the game for a minute.
Yeah.
Like, I should be able to do at least okay.
So, I mean, I want to ask you. So
No,
you said you lost
let's
a lot, but because I think this is important, because I was talking with one of my buddies the other day, and we're talking about people that ask questions, and then they ask questions, but really, do they want to know the answer to the question, or do they just want to be told that they're doing something good or not? So I think people typically, you know what I'm saying? So people need to ask questions and actually take whatever is given to them and go back and start working on it. You know, so if you're going to ask your professor or your coach a question, you better like really have open ears and go back and listen to what they said and work on it. So for me, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times I think people are like, well, how did I do? Because I want that next belt, I want that next stripe, but they're really just wanting like, hey, tell me I'm doing something good, because I just got my ass kicked like 50 times in 5 minutes, and it's kind of it can be humiliating sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And I always tell people the story. I forgot what belt that was. I mean, I was probably orange belt or green belt, and my coach Dewey at the time was really, really good with the Toriando pass, like, and Toriando kind of X style pass, and he did Kimuras, and that was it. Like he'll admit that he's like, yeah, that's pretty much all I did, but he was so good at it.
Yeah.
So for me, I kid you not, I would get my guard pass at least 50 times a night, and it sucked, but he would Toro pass, go towards north south, get the Kimura, and I would tap. And I would spin up, slap hands, and we'd go again. And then he would do it again. And my goal was to not fully prevent it, but to stop it a little bit more. So then it got to the point where it's like, okay, well now I slowed it down for another 4 or 5 seconds. And then it was, okay, now I slowed it down for 10 seconds. I stopped the pass once, he reset, and then he had to do it. Now I stopped the pass, he reset, and then now we're in a scramble. And you know what I mean? So you start to slow it down, and then sooner or later, that person's not passing your guard anymore. But I think a lot of times people just kind of throw their hands up and they don't know why. If your guard gets passed, I was just telling, I posted this in the class that I did the other day. If your guard gets passed by one person 5 times in a 5-minute round and you don't have a question to ask, you got to think a little bit deeper. You know what I mean? Because it's such a deep art, but there's something going on there that you need to ask yourself, and then ask your coach that question. That's how you improve faster. Because it's the people that are like, just tell me what to do. Like, I don't think jiu-jitsu quite works that way.
It really doesn't.
Because
you could show specific.
Up, you could show up to class and just do what you're told. You're going to get to a certain point. But if you go in there and you start asking yourself questions, you start to look for those answers a lot more, and you start to improve your jiu-jitsu substantially more. Because, like, to me, if someone passes my guard once, I got a lot of questions. Like, I want to know exactly how that person did it. What did I do wrong? So I will scour YouTube for hours and you know what I mean? And I think visualization is really big. I do it every day, and I have since I was 13 with jiu-jitsu, about you put music. For me, I'll put some music on and I just think about what happens in a match. So if I'm going to go out and compete a fight to win, I think about who I'm competing against. And I literally tried to decide every outcome, winning and losing, of what can happen in that match. And then, so you're prepared for everything. So a lot of times when you win, it shouldn't be too big of a surprise, because you should have already seen it. You know what I mean?
Yes, but I want to talk about it more, because I feel like not everyone is as, what's the word I want to say? Like, you're so smart about this. Like, I don't think about it like that. Like, I kind of think about it like that, but like you're layered thinking about it like that. Like,
yeah, and I mean, again, I think it just comes down to, time, right? Like, but I've been obsessed. Yeah, like I've been obsessed since I didn't just start jiu-jitsu when I was 13 and then carry on and then get to the point where it's like, it was just, I was obsessed with going back to when I was younger. Like, I would go to the gym. I would think about jiu-jitsu at school. I would go to the gym, and then I would come home, and my dinner was always like in the refrigerator, because I was never in time. I was never home in time to eat with my family. And then I would take my dinner out, and I would sit on the computer and watch highlight videos for hours and hours and hours learning. And I learned so much from YouTube, but it was like taking that information, going back into the gym and actually trying to apply it. But then you can't just watch it once, so you think about it. So I think, I don't know how much you visualize jiu-jitsu, but like I do it all the time. Put a song on and I think about what can happen in that match, or like a technique that I've been working on. So, and you start to see it so clear. That's why I'm saying, like when I've lost a lot of times, I'm like, I don't want to say I'm surprised. Someone has to, how do I say this without, I don't want to sound like weird with this, but your mindset, you going back to mindset for competitions. This is what changed competitions for me, is you can go out there and you start thinking about, how am I going to beat this guy, right? Have you ever done that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so how am I going to beat this guy? When really you should be saying, how is this person going to beat me? You know what I'm saying? So, because if you start thinking about how am I going to beat this guy, it kind of throws everything that you've known into some sort of a scramble. But if you start thinking about, like, this guy has to beat me.
And what am I vulnerable to? How
Exactly.
can I fix that?
So how do I get to my spots to make sure that person doesn't have that? So you start setting up the game plan before you even go out there.
I think that I've done a smaller version of what you're talking about. I've started to realize where I'm messing up and trying to figure out how to fix it. After I told you that Wednesday I drove home, I was texting all my senseis.
Yeah.
Like I was texting all my senseis, and I texted my sensei Lee, and I said, "Listen, bro, we got to get it. I need to get in the gym with you as soon as possible. Yeah. Like you got to tell me what I'm doing. Like I'm messing up somewhere, and it's something so tiny, and it ended up being something so tiny."
And that's usually what it is, right?
Yep.
And it's usually a different grip, a different angle.
It was my grip.
That one thing can open up a world of opportunities.
It literally was messing up everything. Yeah. I've been, since quarantine started, Tom DeBlas, shout out Tom DeBlas. He doesn't watch this.
Shout out anyways.
Shout out anyways. He gave out a free online DVD like at the beginning of quarantine. And so I was like, dude, I'm snatching up a Tom DeBlas half guard. So I got his half guard. Yeah. And as I'm going through it, I see this sweep called the waiter sweep. Never seen it, never heard of it, loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah, the waiter sweep's awesome.
Like it was, it to me, it's a cool move to me.
Yeah.
And I thought it was intriguing in a lot of different ways. And so like I was like attached to it right away.
Yeah.
So I've been having so much fun with the waiter sweep, but like I said, I was getting myself into a bad position just because I don't know why I was putting my arm in a place where I shouldn't have been putting my arm.
Right.
And then I fixed that, and then I went and rolled again, and I was like, oh.
No, you're getting it a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. The waiter sweep's awesome.
You a waiter sweep fan?
Oh, I love the waiter sweep.
Yeah?
Yeah, I hate half guard. So that's why I like to get out of half guard into a better sweeping position, right?
I've been loving half guard.
So half guard bottom, yeah.
Half guard bottom, yeah. I
have things about half guard bottom.
Really? So like I played white, like look at me, white belt. I played all guard.
Yeah.
I just stayed on my back all the white belt. As soon as I got to blue belt, realized I was flawed. Like I only played bottom.
Yeah.
So I like started rounding out my top game a lot more. But now I've gotten back to where I just like half guard bottom has been so fun for me. Yeah.
Some people are so good with half guard. I mean, like you said, you had Craig Jones on, and Craig Jones he plays kind of a Z guard. It's a variation of a half guard, right? Yep. But he's so good at it because he has this barrier, this frame that allows him to transition into all these other leg lock positions and sweeps and triangles. But to me, I always looked at half guard as like you're halfway to getting your guard passed. You know what I mean? So like to me,
they're halfway to mountain.
And I have a lot of training partners that are bigger than me. So and I've always been a smaller guy when I roll with a lot of my training partners. So if someone's got half guard on me and they're chest to chest, well now I have to wear their weight. If I have to wear their weight, now I'm going to get tired more. And now if I get tired more, they're going to start to pass a little bit more. If they start to pass more, then the submission's going to come faster. So it's like to me, I have a goal when I roll with older, or not older guys, but with bigger training partners.
Hey, whoa, you can see the gray hair through the hat, brother.
Hey, I got some gray hair. I'm catching up to you. I might be young, but I'm feeling a little older with my gray hair. But it's like the goal should be like I always just have it like they can't pass my knees. Don't let them pass your knees, because then I'm like, as long as I can have that little bit of barrier, it makes me feel a little bit safer.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But but at the same point, you should definitely be comfortable with.
Yeah, so I feel like once I figured out the waiter sweep, then I started figuring out the electric chair, because I got a little bit of 10th Planet in me.
Yeah,
so I was like, I was telling Professor Phil Schwartz, I was like, these people keep jacking their leg back every time I try and like swoop under. He was like, it's electric chair time, baby.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the man. That scares me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's blowing a lot of ACLs.
Yeah. I feel like it's just like people just give up.
I'll scramble out of that as fast. So if you and I ever roll, I'm scrambling out of that as fast as I can.
Oh, no. Dude, so Sensei Andy, if you put him in lockdown, he will... It's you have two choices, right? Let me break down the two. The first one is his massive shoulder in like your like jaw area.
Yeah, dude, he's
but
strong.
If it's nice Sensei Andy that day, he'll just go elbow. And he'll just shove his elbow like right in your face. Yeah. And he'll just keep you in that spot.
You know, so there's a lot of those like positions too that like when someone plays them really well, it's impressive. Like I was never a fan of that whole lockdown position, because I saw so many people that were lower belts would do it to someone that's an upper belt, and they would say, like, kind of brag, like, look how much longer it took, like, but you didn't do anything from there. And then ultimately I saw it was Eddie Bravo and Royler Gracie too, and I saw how effective he didn't just go to the electric chair, he used it.
That was one of the
sweeps, submissions, and it was impressive.
That's one of my favorite matches.
Yeah,
that was such a good match.
It was impressive, man. Really, really impressive. Because going back to half guard, there people can just hold half guard, and then people can use half guard, and it's impressive. Like Jeff Glover, right, and Kyle Terra, and you watch these guys, you're like, wow. I remember I used to have Kyle Terra's half guard DVD, and that's where I was like, I got to learn some half guard material. And he was, man, that was a game changer, because he was so technical with everything that he did from that position. That it was impressive. But again, going to those positions that people can use for a stalling position, but when someone uses them and they use them for sweeps and submissions, it becomes it is impressive.
So if someone gets you in half guard bottom, you're just immediately scrambling, or you're
no just the electric, just because I don't want to blow my ACL.
I see.
Yeah, because you never know what someone's gonna do, right? And you're so bound up, and again it goes back to like, if you just let the sweep happen, likely you're not gonna get hurt, but it depends if it's a competition. But I mean, a lot of times it's like, like you can feed into those positions by trying to put more weight, and a lot of it is like rather than just kind of driving into what is going to feed that person's, in this case the electric chair, just back out.
Yep.
And don't give them the, you know what I mean, fight the underhook and just back out, and then try to pummel through and ultimately get the heck out of that position, because it is deadly when someone's good at it, and I don't do a lot of no-gi, so there's that, my advantage to that, just stay away from that. But Dude,
tell me what's your plan for like the next, let's say 3 years. What's the plan for the next 3 years?
I have no idea what my plan is going forward with everything going on, but I would like to compete more.
I want to see you compete.
My goal was, I stopped competing after I got my black belt. Once I got my black belt, I got busier with work and with school, and ultimately I was like, I have to be able to make an income to move out of my parents' house, because I don't want to, you don't want to live at your parents' house.
You don't
that long.
It's just not a good time.
It caused me to, like, if I can't put 100% of myself into it, I didn't want to do it. But I've kind of found a better balance, so I am excited to go back and compete, and I am excited. I'd like to see. I'm trying to be realistic with competition goals, but at the same point, I do want to see how far I can take it. And I would I'm looking for, super fights and things like that, because I am training, and like I said, I do a lot of visualization with jiu-jitsu, which is should be a massive part of everyone's training. If you talk to anyone that at a high level, I guarantee they think about jiu-jitsu just as, if not more than they actually physically train jiu-jitsu, which is why those guys at any high level, right? I mean, they're going to be visualizing it probably just as much as they physically train their sport or their art. But that's my goals. I definitely would like to compete. And that was my goal leading into before everything kind of got shut down with the pandemic. But, and like, I think I competed at the first sub league, and then this all hit. And I was talking to I was talking to Armand, I was talking to one of my other brown and black belts, and we were talking about, like, we were looking into different tournaments that we were going to start to go do, and everything kind of got shut down. Kind of shut that down, but it'll come back. And
okay, let me ask a obvious blue belt question. Someone who, how would you recommend people start visualizing? Because I think about jiu-jitsu, right? But I don't feel like I'm like thinking about it like as efficiently as you are.
Yeah.
So if you were going to give someone advice, someone's like, dang, Coach Bryan, that's like one of the best ideas I've ever heard. How would you recommend me, like, at least starting?
I mean, one is whatever you learn in class, go back and think about it that night, because you just learned it's fresh, right? Or for me, it was, I watch some instructionals, but I like to watch more highlight videos. I want to see what people are actually doing in competition, if that's your goal, is to compete. And then you start looking at, okay, well, they're in that position. What did they do? And you just start thinking about it. Think your way through it. Okay, now you passed. What would be the reaction? What would be your reaction to that person's reaction? And you start thinking about it in levels ahead. But you can start off by just going back with whatever it is that you learned that night from training. Or if you got your guard pass 5 times in one training session, think about what happened. You know what I mean? Like, because I think sometimes we're kind of out of tune to like what's actually happening. And then we're like, I don't know, I don't have a question to ask. I'm like, you should have a lot of questions to ask. But so that could be a really good start, is just what happened, whatever the coach taught, start with that. And then whatever happened into your role that you have, start asking yourself questions. I think is big. You know what I'm saying? Like, actually asking yourself questions is really important to seeing, like, to actually figure out what you need to look for as far as answers go. But,
all right, I don't want to keep you here too much longer, dude. We could talk all day.
Oh, I could talk
like,
about
dude, me and you, like we could talk all day.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you a couple non-jiu-jitsu questions before we get out of here. I'm a dog lover, huge dog lover.
Me
like,
too.
I've had dogs for like over 10 years now, and so my only question, right, is because I heard you talking about dogs, is you were talking about like not wanting to buy purebred dogs.
Yeah.
And that broke my heart because I love my Boston Terrier.
No. So I like purebred dogs. I just, when I bought a book when my wife and I started looking for a dog, and it was about dog training. And I started just learning as like what it means, like for somebody to breed dogs. Like I get it, like there's a right way to do it, but then you learn that most people don't do it right. So then you're like, well, now these poor dogs are just getting like completely overbred, which is why a lot of purebreds have a lot of health issues. And we ended up getting a cat from the Humane Society. Like, I don't know why I wanted a cat, but I wanted to get a cat, so we got a cat, and he's awesome. But we started looking for some. We lived in an apartment at the time. We actually moved out of one apartment to get into another apartment, so that way we could buy a dog. And I don't like yappy dogs, but there was a 40-pound size limit. So I was like, well, what's a dog that would pretty much do anything I want to go do? Or like hang out and whatnot. And so we had our eyes set on buying a pug. And I won't go all into that story. But
I love short-nosed
awesome.
dogs. Yeah. I've got
awesome.
a Boston Terrier, so.
But it ended up falling through one pug that we were going to go get. And then we started looking into some other dogs. And then I thought we were just going to get any dog that we possibly could. And then we got a dog from the Vancouver Humane Society. And it was the best decision ever as far as buying an animal. It was the perfect dog, and it was the dog that you got to see that was about a year old and have all black animals for whatever reason. And I guess that they are like they're the ones that get adopted the least I didn't know that. My buddy, actually, you probably heard it on the other podcast, but he runs a Rescued Heroes, which is an Instagram account for all about adopted dogs. And him and I were talking about it, and then I was talking about another one of my clients about adopting dogs, and he was telling me about his experience. So ultimately, we ended up getting this dog that was and it was all positive for the most part, right? So we ended up getting a dog that was a year old and was a stray down in California, and she just looked like, oh, it was so sad. Like she got drug in. There was pit bulls on both sides of her. Nothing wrong with pit bulls. Just massive dogs on both sides of her cage, and she was just so scared the whole time. I felt so bad for her, and they had to drag her into the room. She was so scared. They had to drag her into the room, and I remember I put my hand out, and she was really intimidated by men, and she stopped wagging her tail. And then I brought my hand back, and she just wagged her tail and got closer. So, you know, so it's like that. She was just testing you, like, oh, okay.
She's like, passed.
Yes, passed.
Passed, I'm in.
And then we start, and she's like, she's the best dog ever. But ultimately, and then, you know, she ended up not wanting to go up and down stairs. She would cower when people would try to touch her, and she wouldn't go into my car. And now she's like, I mean, she's way more so to see them kind of transform from a dog that really needs you to a dog that's like they're, you know, like one of your best friends.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
We gotta, so we're 50-50. We got, cause dude, I'm gonna forever have a Boston Terrier.
Yeah. They're
like,
awesome.
Dude, Boston Terriers have my heart, and my Boston Terrier that I have right now is really good with my son.
Yeah.
And so it's like the cutest thing I've ever seen.
They're
so
awesome.
like, I'm having a Boston forever, but we rescued a pit bull.
Yeah.
He's the worst.
Oh yeah.
Not really, but he's the worst.
Yep. Did you get him as a puppy?
Yeah, actually we did. I think we just did a bad job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's when you have one dog, it's also intimidating to you know, adopt another dog. So we ended up, I think we've just had her for a year, but we got another dog from the Newberg Humane Society, and I don't know what I was thinking. I think I just got back from an international trip that I was working at, and I was slightly jet lagged. My wife says like, "Oh, let's go look at some dogs,
dude."
Because it would always be cool to have two.
No,
right?
dude,
No.
the answer's always no. I know, dude. I know.
I was like, we're not getting another dog. I was always like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I would totally get.
Oh, we're
another
getting a dog.
And we went over
picking
there
up
and we
a
looked
dog.
at it. Yeah, we looked at this dog, and literally there's like a litter of these puppies, and they look. We always thought of, like, our dog's like 30 something pounds. The first one that we got. And I was like, well, that'd be sweet to have. Like, can you imagine having two of those? Like, how cool would that be? Well, these dogs look very similar. They couldn't be more different. And I walked in there. I was like, I'm getting that dog. Like, right off the bat, this one dog walked right up to me. I picked it up, and I felt like a little kid.
Sold.
And we got it. And oh my gosh, I don't think I'm ever getting another puppy. She's awesome.
Dude,
now.
puppies are
she
hard.
was so much work.
Dude, puppies are hard.
It's like, I can't. Luckily, we have hardwood floors in our house because I cleaned up more pee and went through more paper towels. It was insane. Like, it was absurd. I was like, everyone says getting a puppy is hard. And I was like, of course, like, I've taught kids for 14 years. Like, you know, how hard it can be. Well, you get to like send them home. Right?
Yeah.
The puppy's there with you all the time. Like, and like anytime you look, like, I would see her, okay, she's good. Turn my eyes to go do work. I look back and there's pee on the floor. I'm like, when did you have the time to do that?
How dare you?
How dare you?
All right, last thing, because we've run long on this one.
Yeah.
But you're a cool guy, so like
thanks, man.
we could keep going. You, sir, claim that you can cook a delicious steak, and I want to know more.
Okay, well, that's another thing I got obsessed about because I went to a steakhouse when I was in Vegas. And I was like, how much better can a steak be when you actually... It was the first steakhouse I'd ever gone to. This was just a couple of years ago. And they brought it out, and I was like, this is unreal. Like, I've never cooked something like that. Well, I didn't want to spend that much money on steaks.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, well, So I watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to cook steak. And I have a lot to learn.
All right, so what's your go-to for cooking a steak? Because I got two different ways I like to cook mine.
As far as, I try to keep it basic. One, get a good steak. You know, if you're gonna like rather than having them all the time, just like might as well get like one good one every now and then because that's a big difference as opposed to buying a bunch of cheap steaks. But getting a good steak, just salt, pepper, and garlic powder, and then charcoal grill. Nothing beats the charcoal grill.
Ooh.
Although everyone can say sous vide or whatever. Have you heard of the sous vide method?
I'm not a sous vide guy.
Yeah.
But I'm a Gordon Ramsay guy.
And the cast iron. Yeah.
So, dude, the cast iron with the fresh herbs and the garlic and the butter, get out of here, brother. That's with like a ribeye with just a little. Ooh, get out of here, brother.
So you're gonna say that'd be better than charcoal?
You know what? I think like you're gonna have the butteriest bite of steak you ever had.
But you don't have the charcoal flavor.
I
always look at it where I'm like, there's usually a way where this like the food kind of tells you this is how it's supposed to be prepared, right?
Yeah.
So this is how it's supposed to be. I think meat like that, it's ingrained that it's supposed to be cooked over fire, and that's the best way to do it.
Hold on, but technically, I'm still cooking it over fire, right? It's just
I have an electric stove at home. Maybe that's the problem. I have an electric stove and a cast iron. But it is really good. But
hey, low key. I like right now. I'm on a just off the grill.
Yeah.
Like like salt, pepper, garlic. I like the garlic powder and a little bit of onion powder.
Yeah.
That's my go-to with some avocado oil. I'm on that avocado oil instead of olive oil now.
That's awesome.
On the grill, that's been tasting real lovely. Yeah.
You got to do the good sear and then move it in direct. Make sure it doesn't have all that grayness. Have you ever gone to like the dry aged or Wagyu steaks?
Oh yeah. Oh, dude,
that's bad. That's bad because like you could have really good steaks and you have something like that. You're like, I just ruined everything else for me.
See, and
right?
I even have like a little marinade that I like to put on the Wagyu. Whole Foods.
Yeah.
They get me.
Yeah.
They get me in there. I walk in, I'm like,
it's not good
which
on the bank
Wagyu
account.
should I buy today, guys?
It's not good on the bank account, but if you're gonna do it once, like every now and then, treat yourself.
Yo, thank you so much for
Thanks
coming
for having
on.
me, man.
Dude, I appreciate it so much. Follow us on Instagram at Dojo Outfitters, at Chicken Bone BJJ, at Bryan Marugg, 2 G's. What's up? We out. Peace.